can take a big sigh of relief, Eagles fans. Football is back. Training Camp 2022 is underway. Fans are rolling into the NovaCare complex as the NFL celebrates Back Together Saturday. It's also Military Day here in South Philadelphia. Hundreds of servicemen and women have arrived to camp to watch their Eagles take the field. Welcome to Inside Training Camp. I'm your host, Ella DiGiovanni, and I will be joined shortly by Eagles Insider Dave Spadaro and Fran Duffy. Well, all this week, Eagles fans got their first look at the newest additions to the 2022 Eagles team, of course, starting with first-rounder defensive tackle Jordan Davis, linebacker Haason Reddick, and wide receiver A.J. Brown, just to name a few. Well, it's day 4 of training camp, day 3 of practice, and Eagles Insider Dave Spadaro joins me live from the practice field. Dave, it's been an exciting opening to training camp. What is the energy around this team?
Well, good morning, Ella. It's a beautiful day here in South Philadelphia. Nice breeze out here, good crowd, great energy. I think the theme from the outside, certainly, I know that every fan watching is super pumped about this Philadelphia Eagles team based primarily on, look, last year team went to the playoffs and then the offseason was just off the charts great. But from an insider standpoint, the Eagles really taking and I hate to use the cliche, but Nick Sirianni says it so much it's in my brain, one day at a time, get better every day, don't get ahead of yourselves. This is a team that understands that it has a chance very much so to build on last year, turning the season around, reaching the postseason, and then bringing in such talent. So I think that's kind of like where you're thinking right now is that this football team is excited for sure, and they've built a lot of chemistry and camaraderie, but let's pump the brakes here a little bit and focus on getting better each and every day.
Just like any start to any season, there's a lot of storylines that surround the team. Which ones are you focusing in on at the start of camp?
I mean, the obvious one, of course, is the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, but I'm going to go with this. I really want to see how this defense, with so many new faces, some of whom you mentioned at the top of the show, Ella, Haason Reddick and Jordan Davis. You signed Kaiser White, you bring in James Bradbury, you've got Jaquiski Tart. How do all of those pieces come together? Brandon Graham returning after missing most of last season. That's one of the themes. And then how much immediate impact will you get from a rookie class? Only 5 players, but really highly heralded. How does Jordan Davis fit in? Can Nakobe Dean earn playing time at one of the linebacker spots? Cam Jurgens all of a sudden is working at guard here in practice along with center. Can he get on the field? So these are great questions to ask. We'll get some of these answers in training camp and through the preseason.
You mentioned new faces on the defensive side of the ball. How do all of these pieces perhaps impact Jonathan Gannon's scheme?
It seems to me, based on what I've learned from Jonathan, spending time with him, hearing him speak to the media on Friday, that the scheme isn't going to change all that much. But the Eagles do want to have multiplicity in their fronts. And he said that every single player who's in that defensive front 7 can play in a 3-man front or a 4-man front. They do want to give a lot of different looks. They want to be able to free Haason Reddick up. Look, last year the Eagles defense really good against the big plays, ranking among the best in the league at limiting big plays. And then also in 10 games, 18 points or less. Where they need to improve is getting to the quarterback, 29th in the league in sacks last year. And that is a reason Haason Reddick is here. And the Eagles need to take the football away. So I don't know if the change of the scheme is going to be the big theme here. I think executing the scheme better. That's kind of the message that I've gained from Jonathan Gannon.
Dave, the wide receiver market was hot this offseason. The Eagles, of course, making a splash for A.J. Brown. What does he add as a weapon to this offense?
Really an amazing series of moves by the Eagles, Ella, to acquire Brown in the trade and then to sign him to a contract extension in an exploding wide receiver market. Brown here through 2026. His skill set is unique. It plays very nicely with Devonte Smith. You've got the big, burly, strong A.J. Brown, and Nick Sirianni just talked about it in his morning press conference here. They did a lot of research. They understand he's a proven player, 24 touchdowns in Tennessee. They know what he can do. They're going to put A.J. Brown specific plays into this offense. We're just not going to see him until September 11th in Detroit. So it's going to be really dynamic, the way that he and Brown play off each other and the way that helps Jalen Hurts elevate his game. A.J. Brown is somebody who can take a short pass and go big with it. He invites contact. He runs through that contact. Very physical player. That's something that we have not seen with the Eagles in a really long time.
And A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, of course, have a very well-developed relationship off the field, long before they were both Philadelphia Eagles. So it's going to be exciting to see how that translates onto the field as these weeks start to tick by. Well, that was Eagles insider Dave Spadaro. He will be joining us back in just a little bit, but we're going to head across the practice field where I am joined live by Mr. Fran Duffy. Fran, what do you got for us?
Well, Ella, the Eagles operating some field goal drills over my left shoulder, but really just another day of practice. It's great to be out here for day 3. Like Dave mentioned, it's an outstanding day weather-wise outside. Day 1, offense was really crisp. Day 2, the defense bounced back. I'm excited to see what this team has for us here on day 3.
You talk about the offense versus the defense. Center Jason Kelce yesterday in his press conference said that D-line is giving that offensive line a run for their money, perhaps an iron sharpens iron type of situation we're going to see unfold here at camp. How beneficial is that from both sides, and what do you hope to see as these weeks go on?
Well, it's clearly one of the strengths of this football team, right, is the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And I think when you look at this Eagles defense, they can really attack an offense in a number of different ways up front, because if you're looking for size and power, well, you've got that. Obviously, you get the addition of Jordan Davis. If you want speed and quickness and burst and flexibility, well, that's where you bring in a guy like Hassan Reddick. You've got the inside flexibility of a guy like Brandon Graham, a Josh Sweat that can win with length. Obviously, maximum effort across the board. We haven't even mentioned Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. Just a really deep, a really versatile unit. Milton Williams is a player that I have raved about time and time again over the last year and change. So this Eagles defensive line, it's going to be a tough load for any offense to be able to handle, and certainly going to give this Eagles offensive front a test every single day out here in practice.
When you talk about that Eagles offensive front, obviously they proved to be very, very important to this Eagles offense last year as the Eagles became one of the best rushing offenses in the NFL. There's going to be some guard competitions to look out for. Just like similar to last season, we saw Jordan Mailata, Andre Dillard duking it out for that left tackle position. What do you expect to see from these guards through the next few weeks?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up. It's an interesting position because Landon Dickerson, a year ago at this time, he was on the sidelines. He was still coming back from that knee injury he suffered late in his final season in college football. Then you go over to the other side, Isaac Seumalo, he's at right guard. Well, he was playing left guard the year before. Well, now Isaac Seumalo, he's going to be lined up next to Lane Johnson. Those two have only played one snap together since going back to the Super Bowl year in 2017, next to each other along the offensive line. So while they know each other very, very well, those guys are going to become accustomed to communicating more often in the run game and in the pass game. Both elements huge, obviously. So I think when you look at just the communication between those two, that's something that training camp will be so pivotal for with Lane Johnson and Isaac Seumalo. Like you said, 2 new guards than what we saw a year ago in those spots.
All right, Fran, I'm going to have you stay right there. Dave Spadaro is going to rejoin us right now. He's still out there live on the practice field. Dave, what are you seeing?
Well, I'm looking at the offensive line, and Fran, let's talk about that, because to me, certainly the offensive line is something the Eagles have always invested in. We know that. What really stands out to me is the depth of this offensive line, because it's not just about Lane Johnson returning to form last year. It's not just about Jordan Mailata stepping up and showing that, hey, maybe he might be one of the best guards here in the National Football, left tackles in the National Football League. Jason Kelce still playing at an extremely high level, and it is good to see him, just getting back out here on the field. I just feel like beyond them, and Jason's taking some reps here, which he really hadn't done in the first couple of days as he recovers from COVID. Fran, there's a lot of younger players that are going to compete for playing time, at least in a backup role. And that, to me, separates this Eagles offensive line from some in the past. Agree with me?
No question. I think when you look at, if you read like a lot of the preseason prognostications from around NFL media, you'll see that everybody is raving about this Eagles offensive line, not just because of the talent up front, not just because of the scheme, but also because of the depth. A lot of people looking at the second unit of this Eagles offensive line and saying, yeah, like these are guys that can start elsewhere around the league. And I think that speaks to this coaching staff, certainly to the scouting staff for identifying talent. But the development is so big, and so much of that development happens right here during training camp. And a lot of these guys that we see, you talk about Jordan Mailata. Yeah, he's the example right now at left tackle. He's who the coaches are pointing to, say, yeah, young guys, watch him. Well, just last year, 2 years ago, he was the guy that was clawing for reps, trying to find every extra snap he could. And again, that's just an example of the development we see in that position room.
As you said, Dave, the Eagles... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to touch on that more. When I look at number 77, I look at Andre Dillard, who hasn't really played a ton in his time here. When he's played well. The dedication, the time he put into the weight room in the offseason, when you have, he's your backup left tackle, LaRaven Clark, who the Eagles thought so much about, they gave him a contract extension for another year. So, I mean, to have those two as your backup tackles is really impressive stuff. Players who are tested, players who've been on the field here in the NFL and have had success, that really bodes well for this Eagles offense.
Like you said, Dave, the Eagles invest a lot in the big boys up front, but how about the moves they made in the secondary? Dave, can you tell me a little bit about the addition of James Bradberry pairing up with Darius Slay in the back?
Yeah, James Bradberry and I had a really great long conversation shortly after he became a Philadelphia Eagle, and talking to some of the defensive coaches about him. And what's impressive is his length. He's a physical player. He's a different kind of player than Darius Slay. He can match up with the physical receivers that the Eagles are going to see this season. Slay is your speed receiver, and obviously can match up with any receiver in the National Football League. And then when you bring in Avonte Maddox as your nickel cornerback, I mean, that is as impressive a threesome as I can remember. And I'm going to go way back here. This is my 26th season with the Eagles that I can ever remember, because I remember, look, the Bobby Taylor, Troy Vincent, excellent group. Al Harris, very good in the nickel. The Eagles were really good with Lito Shepherd and Sheldon Brown. I just think that this group potentially, Bradberry adds so much. And of all of the offseason additions, I know everybody's super excited about all of them, A.J. Brown, etc. James Bradberry, to get him after the draft, what a coup. And Howie and Roseman and I spoke about it. We broadcasted on the last Eagles Insider podcast. You know, his sales pitch is, hey, just come to Philadelphia. We've got a good deal here. We've got a great defense. This is an awesome football city. And it really, at this point in time, it's not even a pitch. Players want to come to Philly, and you, the fans, are a reason for it. The way you reach out to the players with the love you give them on social media, the support on days like this at training camp, on game days at Lincoln Financial Field, it really does make a difference.
Well, while we're on the subject of Darius Slay, he is up to his same old tricks. We have some behind-the-scenes footage of him messing around earlier this week in a press conference.
Oh, it's me, like, I'm doing my Usher song.
I'm rolling. Well, I mean, I'm live, so I don't know if they can.
I'll stop hating on you, man.
I think it's safe to say Darius Slay should perhaps stick to the day job, but we know he is the core to this defense when it comes to energy. And Jonathan Gannon yesterday spoke about how some of these vets, like Darius Slay, like Anthony Harris, are the gap, the bridge that this coaching staff needs to reach those younger players. So it's exciting to see how this is all going to unfold. Yesterday, I asked TJ Edwards how rookie Nakobe Dean was doing in his transition, and he said he's an intellectual player and he asks questions. Fran, I know you spent a ton of time watching Nakobe Dean film. How do you think some of that is going to translate as a student of the game?
Well, no question, it's going to be a huge part of the value he brings to this Eagles franchise, and that was a big reason why he was so successful and won so many awards last year, his final season in college football. His play recognition skills, both against the run and against the pass. I did a film breakdown segment with Jonathan Gannon. It was about early June, and just trying to narrow down those plays to illustrate that was so difficult because there were so many. Him sniffing out the screens, him taking a pick six back to the house against Florida where he jumps a route against a running back out wide. You see him being able to diagnose run plays and beat defenders or beat blockers to the spot. Just such an impressive player from a mental side of things.
Dave, I know you've spent a lot of time talking to some of these newer players as they enter the building. Those two Georgia Bulldogs, like we were just talking about, Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis, what have they shared with you perhaps about their experience at Georgia and how that translates to the National Football League?
I mean, I think when you get to Georgia, you are, Ella and Fran certainly knows this, right? You guys understand that every day, it's not just on game days, it's every day you're practicing against five-star recruits, you're practicing against the best talent, you're getting the best coaching, and you are primed for those big moments. So they are not coming in here wide-eyed and, the media contingent doesn't overwhelm them. And I think that's actually been a big component that I've always watched rookies to see how they handle the media. for both Jordan and Nakobe, no problem. So it's really just a matter. So when you take all of that away, it really narrows it down to just getting ready for football, understanding that you're playing against grown men here. You can't win just on talent. You've got, and Jordan Davis has talked about this a lot, that you really need to get better at technique. And when we see these drills out here, fans who've been maybe familiar with Westchester or Lehigh University, this is a different NFL. And so what the Eagles are doing here is they're working on technique and fundamentals. It's a long 17-game season. We've got joint practices in Cleveland and in Miami. There's going to be plenty of time for the physical part, 3 preseason games. What they're doing here is really getting better at technique, and that's where Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean need to take their games. That's where they get to the next level. That's how they make an impact in the NFL, working on these things that fans look at and go, wait a minute, that's not the football I remember in training camp. Well, this is 2022. This is the new NFL. And I've talked to enough players, past and present, who have said that had these, drills been going on back in the day, they probably would have been better football players in the long run for it.
No question, because I think right now, this is all about trying to build that muscle memory for all of these guys. And so you might be watching some of these drills at home and saying, well, how does this apply to the football field? You're trying to work certain muscle groups to train your body to be able to do things. So whether it's a defensive lineman defeating blocks, you might see a big ball roll towards them. It's like, how is that going to help them when you're trying to defeat a 330-pound offensive guard? Or you see the defensive backs jumping onto a mat. And it's like, all right, well, that helps them in terms of trying to finish on the ball. There's all these different things all across the scope of the entire field that you might look at and say, like, well, what does that do? Well, it's all about some of the minutia in terms of how these guys are trying to train their body, all those specific techniques, Dave, that you referenced. That's what these drills are all about. And it might even seem monotonous, because if you come out to camp, you're going to see a lot of these drills every single day. But again, it's all about just trying to train your body to react in certain ways that you're going to need come Sundays in the fall.
We spent a lot of time talking about A.J. Brown, and rightfully so, but you can't forget, Eagles fans, Davonte Smith is still on this roster. Your Heisman Trophy winner, your first-round draft pick from just a year ago. Dave, can you tell me a little bit about how A.J. Brown, the addition of A.J. Brown, is going to really open things up for Davonte Smith?
So if you're a defensive coordinator, Ella, and you are facing 2 wide receivers with such unique skill sets, exactly how are you planning to A, scheme against them, and then B, match up against them with your personnel? Somebody, either AJ or Devonte, is going to get the number 2 cornerback on a team. And when I look around the NFL, I don't see a whole lot of depth at the cornerback position. Certainly not at the level of Darius Slay and Bradbury here. So look, I mean, the Eagles can do a lot of different things with Brown, who's the physical receiver, not the burner. Brown is silky smooth, kills people on routes, can get down the field. So I think they're going to play off each other very nicely. We've already seen it at times here where the Eagles have run Brown on a route who's attracted the attention of 2 defenders, and then they've been able to slip another receiver underneath in that vacated area for an easy pitch and catch from Jalen Hurts. It is really exciting to think about. We won't see it again. The Eagles are going to keep this stuff under wraps, Fran. Right there, Fran, we're watching the drills and we're going, hey, can we see what they're possibly going to do with A.J. Brown? And the truth is, they're going to keep this under wraps until September 11th, right? It's the Detroit Lions. That's where we're really going to find out. Starting, what weakness do you want to attack in the defense? You've got weapons in A.J. and Devonte, and even Quez Watkins with his speed and playmaking ability to really impact defenses.
Well,
no question. And I think that it's that versatility that just makes it so fun to watch. And when you see guys like A.J. Brown, Devonte Smith, Quez Watkins, you go right down the depth chart at wide receiver as we see them go through some ball tracking drills here. I think it's just all about having different ways to be able to attack opponents. And we talked about it earlier, Ella, with the defensive line, having those different body types, those different skill sets, all those different tools in your toolbox as a coaching staff. The same thing applies to this receiving core. And you factor in the tight ends with Dallas Goedert and how versatile he is. That's what makes this offense so intriguing going into 2022.
Yeah, you mentioned being intriguing. It's interesting. You think about last year's Nick Sirianni's first year as the head coach of this football team. A lot was kept under wraps through the preseason because we didn't know what a Nick Sirianni coach team was going to look like. We're looking at something kind of similar going into year 2 of his tenure because there are weapons, there are additions that make you kind of think, what's he going to do? And I think that makes his team very interesting through camp and heading into the start of the season. But with that, A.J. Brown spoke very highly of wide receiver Devonte Smith earlier this week. Here's what he had to say.
I do because I'm just trying to help, to be honest, because the ball's not going to go to me every play, you know? And he got to do a job, too, just like I do. And if I can help him any way I can, I'm going to do that. And I would like the same thing for him, too. If he sees something that can help me, I think he would tell me the same thing too. So it's just a little thing as a wide receiver I want to share and just help him out. That's all.
We talk about this duo of A.J. Brown, Davonte Smith. You also have to factor in Dallas Goedert. What have you seen through Dallas Goedert? It's interesting to think about that this is his first camp officially as tight end 1 on this football team.
Yeah, Ella, it's interesting. A really impressive array of skill position players with this offense. And Dallas is very comfortable in the role. He showed that last year after Zach Ertz was traded. I think the Eagles expect huge things from Goedert. Look, the offseason really started for the Eagles midway through the 2021 season when they signed Goedert and Avonte Maddox and Jordan Mailata to the long-term contract extensions. Goedert has everything that you want in a tight end. He's physical, he's rangy, he's tough, he catches the football very well, he runs very well after the catch, he blocks well. Fran, look, I think this is going to be, in a sense, we all focus on the wide receivers. I don't see any reason why Dallas Goedert can't be statistically, Fran, right, one of the best in the league this year. You agree?
Yeah, he has that skill set. He had it from day one when he arrived here as a rookie, was that multiple ability to be able to win as a blocker, as a route runner, down the field. We've seen the yards after catchers. There aren't many tight ends in the NFL. I could probably count on one hand how many tight ends at his size can make plays with the ball in their hands like Dallas Goedert. And I think that's what makes him one of the top tight ends in the league. And again, just speaking to the versatility of this offense as a whole.
He's clearly...
And Ella, let me just say that, Ella, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry for interrupting.
You're good.
But I do want to say this, that maybe the biggest challenge for Dallas Goedert this year is the emotional turmoil from not living any longer with Avonte Maddox. The two are apart. So, Dallas is... Right, so Dallas is who has been described to me as the slob of the two in the odd couple here. He's going to grow up and keep his place clean now. He's got to keep his house clean.
Hey, Avonte Maddox had a really good interception the other day, so maybe not living in disorganization is doing him well on the football field. We'll have to see how that shakes out. While we're on the subject of Avonte Maddox and the defense, let's talk about, guys, the return of Brandon Graham this year. I don't think Eagles fans could be more excited to get him back on the field.
Agreed, and it's not only that, it's in the building, it's just having his smile. He's got a megawatt smile. And BG believes that he's just, this chip on his shoulder is just gigantic. His goal is to be the comeback player of the year. And look, the Eagles defense, if you remember, dominant performance against the Atlanta Falcons in week 1. They were absolutely shutting down the San Francisco 49ers until BG went down. And then there were some hiccups before things got righted a bit later in the season. But having BG back and, his burst appears to be there. He looks good so far. We'll know more when the season starts, of course. Very important to get him back off the edge. Again, 29th in the league in reaching the quarterback last season. That is a statistical number that means a lot to the Eagles. That's why they went out and got Hassan Reddick, and that's why they are thrilled that Brandon Graham is back.
Yeah, and it's just great to see him out here day one on Wednesday with no limitations, out there with the first team defense. And I implore you, all of our viewers, if you have not yet, make sure you go check out a Wired Up segment that aired earlier last week where Brandon Graham, they talked about who's the biggest trash talker on the team, and it's all of his teammates talking about how it is no question BG. It's all the mic'd up clips. You have to go watch it. So as soon as this stream ends, head on over to the Eagles YouTube page, find that Wired Up segment, and I promise you, you will get a kick out of Brandon Brandon Graham and everything he brings to the field on Sundays.
The other day said he's feeling good, and as you can imagine, his teammates, especially in that defensive line room, are thrilled with his return. Well, guys, it is a lot of work. It's a grind getting through training camp, and I know you both have been hard at work delivering Eagles fans with all the content they can possibly imagine. Dave, what do you have going? What can Eagles fans find?
Hey, Ella, I had a really great sit-down with Jalen Hurts yesterday. We talked about a bunch of things, the football team and how he's spinning the football so nicely. Also about his football camp and his message to children. And, Ella, he's spent some time in Philadelphia this offseason cooking up cheesesteaks, so he's got the recipe for all of you Eagles fans. I actually got the unflappable Jalen Hurts to flap just a little bit. We talk about it on the Eagles Insider podcast that drops on Monday. And engaging Jalen Hurts, who admits that he is, yes, an old soul.
Be sure to check that out. Fran, what are you working on for us?
Well, every single day that there is practice, you can go check out my analysis alongside Chris McPherson and Ben Fennell over on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. Like I said, every single day there's practice, we will have a recap over on that feed. Everything that happens on the field, the plays of the day, the biggest takeaways and standouts, all the press conference quotes. Make sure you go check it out, the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, fellows, well, enjoy day 4. Eagles fans, thank you so much for tuning in to Inside Training Camp presented by Independence Blue Cross. Don't worry, Tuesday, August 2nd at 10 a.m., we will be right back here delivering you all the news and the latest from training camp here at the NovaCare Complex. Thank you so much for watching, and go Birds.